Okay, good morning, all. For those in LA. All right, this week's Parsha is Vayishlach, which means "and he sent." It's in Chumash Bereshis, the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verse 4 through 36, 43. The 154 verses. It has one commandment in it. I want you to notice that it's commandment number 3. So what do I mean by that? Because there are 613 commandments, and therefore the commandments are numbered in the order that they appear in the Torah according to the Sefer HaChilul, which is a book of mitzvos that is very fascinating. So we have one mitzvah in it, and it's mitzvah number 3. We had mitzvah number 1 was to get married. Mitzvah number 2 was bris milah, circumcision, and mitzvah number 3 here is, we're going to find out about that shortly. Okay, so what happened at the end of Parshas Vayetze? Yaakov goes to Haran, meets his uncle Lavan, and has shenanigans that he has to deal with there with Lavan, because Lavan is a shyster and a trickster. He ends up marrying both of his daughters, though he was only planning on marrying one, and he ends up having 11 out of the 12 tribes, and then his daughter Dinah, and eventually is heading back, making his way back to the land of Israel, the future land, the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. So Yaakov, it has a concern. If you recall, his mother, when he told him to leave, would let him know when Esav's anger has calmed down. He did not get the email or text that happened yet. So he's a little concerned about what's Esav's going to response be that he's coming. So he sends a message to Esav with angels, with messengers saying that I'm coming back. Now, before I tell you the message, the commentaries look at what Yaakov did. Some look at it favorably and some look at it not favorably. What's the not favorably? There's an expression, leave sleeping dogs lie. Don't wake them up, right? You're bringing you're letting Esav know you're coming, that's going to make a whole hoo-ha. So that's one opinion. The other is, no, try to make peace while Yitzchak, the father, was still alive. So they're both sides of the coin are accurate, if you will. Now, what did he say to him? He says that Parsha begins that he sent messengers to Esav. And then Jacob sent angels ahead of him to Esav, his brother, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. He charged them, saying, thus you shall say to my lord, to Esav, so said your servant Yaakov, I have sojourned with Lavan and have lingered until now. I have acquired oxen and donkeys, flocks, servants, maidservants. I'm sending to tell my lord to find favor in your eyes that I'm coming. So what's the message? He's letting him know he's coming, but he's also telling him something a little deeper. The blessing that Yaakov got from Yitzchak was that and I'll read you the language of it back in Parshas Toldos. May God give you the dew of the heavens and the fatness of the earth and abundant grain and wine. People will serve you, your regimes will prostrate themselves to you, be your lord to your kinsmen, etc., etc., etc. So one of the things Yaakov is saying is the blessings didn't come true. I'm promised land. I have a lot of flocks. I have a lot of animals, but I don't have land. And I was a stranger there. In Lavangarte, I lived there. I was a stranger. I didn't I become this king or anything there. So don't be upset at me that I have the blessings because they didn't come true yet. So that's one understanding of what he's saying. Interestingly enough, he uses the word, again, Vayogar, and he lived. So again, it was as a ger, a stranger. I wasn't part of the, I didn't, the blessings didn't come to fruition. But then there's a very interesting interpretation. Garti means I lived. Now in Hebrew, every letter has numerical value. Aleph is 1. Beis is 2. You guys are math wizards, right? So it goes through the whole entire alphabet. There's a gematria. So the word Garti has the same numerical value as Taryag. Taryag means the 613 commandments. And that's how many biblical commandments there are in the Torah. Remember, I mentioned there's 613, and in this week's Parsha we have the third one. So why is he telling him, Garti, I lived? Because I'm letting you know that I live, even though I was living with Lavan, I didn't learn from his bad ways. So you might think I didn't, which is an important lesson on the side, the importance of not allowing the environment to influence us, which unfortunately we see very clearly what the wonderful education our Jewish kids are getting in secular universities and how it's impacting them, unfortunately. But be that as it may, there's another point that he was making. The 613 commandments, I kept them. I kept the mitzvos. So if you think I didn't get the blessings from God because maybe I wasn't good, you should know, no, I did what I was supposed to do. And the blessing still didn't come to fruition. Right? So those are important ideas. Everyone with me? Yeah? Okay. So therefore I want to make peace with you. And they come back and they tell him, we went to your brother to Esav. Why is it saying your brother to Esav? That sounds redundant. Of course it's his brother Esav. Who then is it? We went to him as a brother, but he's coming back as Esav. He's coming back with 400 soldiers with him, ready to fight you. So that's not good. So Yaakov had fear and distress. So Rashi's commentary, why did he have fear and distress? So Rashi, the premier commentary, tells us, I'm afraid I'll be killed, and I'm afraid I will have to kill. I'll say that again. He had two fears. One, that he may be killed, and second of all, that he will have to kill. Now, Judaism is not pacifist. If you have to fight, you got to fight. We don't believe in, everyone just throw flowers at each other and everything will be fine. That's not how life works. But still, he didn't want to fight if he had to fight. If he has to, he will. That's what we have to do. There's a great line from Golda Meir. Golda Meir was the prime minister of the state of Israel many, many years ago. So first she said two great lines, and I'm going to date the lines, which is so interesting how relevant it is for today. 1957, at the National Press Club in Washington, peace will come when the Arabs will love their children more than they hate us. Very powerful line, and as relevant as ever today. Guess how much money the heads of Hamas have? The top three people total. The total amount of money that they have, they estimate to be $11 billion. Billion with a B.
How much is it from oil?
From oil? There's no oil in Gaza.
No, I mean in terms of worth.
What do you mean worth?
Like what relative, yeah, like how much is it coming from oil companies? I'm just curious.
I don't doubt it's coming from oil
not.
companies. It's coming from the nations that were trying to support the Ghazians to try to create a country. And instead of creating a country, they just siphoned off all the money for themselves. And as they themselves admit, they don't care about the people. They just want to wage war against Israel. They use the cement instead of rebuilding Gaza to make tunnels, and they'll take the fuel from the hospitals to fire up their things for the tunnels.
How big is that? How much?
I don't know. You'll Google it afterwards, right? It's not that big.
Because the money was freezed.
What?
I heard that 11 billion was freezed. Was not freezed.
No, not freezed. And now this is a second line that she made in 1969. Again, this is so powerful because it's so relevant today. When peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons, but it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons. If we have to fight, we'll fight, but we don't like it. We don't want to. Very revealing about the Jewish view of these things. I'm going to digress for a minute. There's a book I read many years ago that was really fascinating to me. The name of the book called The Jewish Brigade. What happened was Israel, before it was Israel, was controlled by the British. The British were fighting a war, and they were interested in getting some more soldiers. So they came to Israel and said, who wants to enlist in the British Army? None of the Arabs were interested because, anyone know why? They were siding with the Nazis. The Mufti went to visit, the Arab Mufti went to visit Hitler and was encouraging, sure. Was very encouraging of what they were doing. And as a matter of fact, they hoped that Rommel, the Desert Fox, the great Nazi general, would come to Israel and the Arabs would help them get rid of the Jews from Israel. So they weren't interested in enlisting in the army, but Jews were interested in enlisting into the British Army. And they made a separate brigade for them called the Jewish Brigade. And they had a Magen David on their uniform. It was like a separate unit. And they did some fighting, a little bit. They were trained by the British and did some fighting. When World War II ended, so these guys are British soldiers in Europe and trying to figure out what to do. So what they did was they started being Nazi hunters. They started hunting Nazis down. They dressed as military police and they found Nazis and they executed them. That's what they did. And what ended up happening is eventually they just got a little callous and they didn't care about dressing up like MPs, like military police, and they just went with their Jewish Brigade clothing. And in one particular place, the priest was actually a Nazi who, when the Americans or the British, whoever was, came, he just slipped into the role as being the priest, and that's what he did to sort of save himself. And they found out that he was actually a Nazi. So they waited in the back of the church. There was a bunch of school kids that were there, so they didn't want to execute him in front of the kids. So they waited till the kids left. One of the girls saw them, and again, they weren't wearing the British MP uniforms anymore, because they, like I said, they had gotten callous about doing it. They were wearing the Jewish Brigade, and she saw the Magen David that they had on the uniform. So she ran away from the group and said, I'm Jewish. My mother left me with this Catholic school, and she never came to pick me up, AKA because she died, was killed by the Nazis, and I want to be with the Jews. So she left the school, and they had guns, so that the people there couldn't stop her, and they didn't kill the Nazi, and they just left. And this started a totally new aspect of their work. They started helping people get to Palestine, and they started getting arms and doing things to help the future fledgling new state. But there was a transition that they went through. Were they wrong for killing the Nazis? No, they deserved to be killed. But it made them bitter and upset. And now they had a new lease on life because they were doing something positive for the future rather than just getting rid of the Nazis, which again, you may have heard of the Simon Wiesenthal Center here in Los Angeles. He was a Nazi hunter. He hunted them down and brought them to trial. But be that as it may, so it says a lot about Judaism. We don't want to kill. As a matter of fact, when I have relatives that had passed in the Holocaust, the letters that we put after their names is Hey Yudalad, which means Hashem Yikem Damam. May God avenge their blood. We're not looking for vengeance. And that's a mistake that people think about what the Israelis were doing now and going into Gaza. This isn't about vengeance. They don't want going in, well, we're going to get you back and let's do the numbers game. You kill this and we'll kill that. And that's not vengeance. We want to get rid of Hamas. If all you guys leave and Hamas leaves, we'll be happy. Whoever wants to live in peace among us can stay. Whoever doesn't, leave. So Hashem Yikim Damam, we want God to take revenge for us. We don't want to take it. So Yaakov was upset about the potential of him being killed and of also the potential of him having to kill. He didn't want to do that. If we have to, we will, but we don't want to. And that's a very, very important idea in understanding what current events as well. Just it's all tied into this. Again, we don't love war, we don't want it, but if we have to, we'll do it, then we'll try to do it well. So Yaakov prepared a three-pronged approach to be able to meet Esav. Number one, he prepared a present to give him a gift, and he took a bunch of animals to send to Esav. Number two, he prayed, and number three, he prepared for war. Part of the preparation was he split the camp into two, and he did three things. And prayer is a very important part of it. Interesting story about prayer that saved the Jews of Yerushalayim in the late 1700s. Yes, Jews have been there all of these years. The Palestinians would like to say that we came from Europe and we took over their land, but in fact, there's been a Jewish presence in Palestine all the years. As a matter of fact, most of the Jews in Israel are not even from European descent. What happened was there was a great rabbi that was praying at the Western Wall, the Kosel Maravi. In those days, we lived in the old city and we had access to it. And he saw 5 brilliantly white letters, Aleph, appear, and he got nervous. He didn't know what he meant. And his fears were confirmed. He learned that the Pasha, the Turkish ruler of Yerushalayim, then Israel was under Turkish rule. Again, no Palestinian state ever. But the Pasha said all the Jews living within 10 blocks of the Western Wall have to vacate their homes immediately. And he didn't wait for anybody to comply. He sent the soldiers out and started kicking people out. And now he understood what the 5 Aleph stood for. It's a verse from the Torah. Omar Oyev Erdev Asig Achalek Shalom. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, and I will divide the spoils. So he was very upset. All seemed lost, many were despaired, but not Reb Mordechai. He prayed to heaven, and he prayed, and that gave him strength. And he said, don't give up hope. That very day, Reb Mordechai received instructions to present himself to the Pasha. And the Pasha said, I just received word that the army of Napoleon is approaching. I'm desperate. If Napoleon comes, all is lost. My only hope rests with you. You must pray to your God not to let Napoleon take over the city. So Rav Mordechai said, you want us to pray? and you ordered us to stay away from the coast now, from the Western Wall, and you're kicking people out of their apartments. And immediately the Pasha reversed his evil decree and allowed them to live and pray there and to pray for the safety of Yerushalayim. And in the end, the city was saved. Napoleon didn't get to take over Yerushalayim. So this is, again, an important idea. First of all, it just shows you about the Jewish presence. We're talking about Napoleon lived in the late 1700s. But there was a Jewish presence there. And even the Pasha understood that there's the power of Jewish prayer to help him make sure that Napoleon doesn't take over. So I just, as a side thing, the Western Wall, what's adjacent to it is the Arab quarter. And guess what? The Arabs didn't always live in the Arab quarter. There were Jews who were living, many Jews were living there too, as the story indicates. All right. So what is Yaakov's prayer to Hashem? Did he say, hey, Hashem, you owe me. You promised me you're going to protect me? That's not what Yaakov says. He says, Ketonti mikol hachasadim. I'm diminished from all of the good that you've done. I came to Haran with a walking stick, because the Eliphaz took away everything, and now I have two camps. I have Rachel and Leah, Bill and Zilpah. I have so many children, thank God. I have so much. I have flocks and workers. It's amazing. So he comes with humility. He comes with great humility. Excuse me. God doesn't owe me anything. I have a lot to be grateful for. And he comes with gratitude, which is a very important idea. Now, where does the word Jew come from? Anyone know? Judah. So why are we called, which is related to who? Yehuda. Yeah. Why are we called Yehudim? Why aren't we called Ruvenim from Ruven or Shimonim from Shimon? We're called Yehudim. And the reason why we're called Yehudim is because why did the name Yehuda come to be? Because Leah said, Hapam Odes Hashem, I give thanks to God. The nature of what we need to develop within ourselves is to be grateful and to have Hoda'ah and give thanks to the Almighty. And that's what that's why we're called Yehudim, after Hoda'ah, to give thanks. We should be grateful. Yes.
Is the root H-O-D?
H-O-D?
Yeah, thanks, like Hod.
It's not Hod. No, not Hod. Hod is beauty. That's something else. Hoda'ah is to give thanks, like in Yehuda. So, I'm sorry?
I think that's what it means.
A little louder.
I said that's what it means.
What means?
I thought it might have something to do with the wood of the car or something.
With the Yehuda car? What Yehuda car? I don't know about a Yehuda car. What's a Yehuda car?
The hood of the car.
Oh, the hood. No, not to do with the hood of the car. You can be grateful you have a hood in the car so that it stays down, doesn't blow in your face. But yes, no, it has nothing to do with the hood. That's English. All right. So in verse 12 on page 173, what he says is, rescue me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him lest he come to strike me down, mother and child. Why does it say both? I fear, rescue me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Why? We know he's talking about Esau, and we know it's his brother. We've learned this a bunch of times recently. So there's a very beautiful, important interpretation. What am I worried about as Esau? He's coming as wicked Esau. He's trying to fight with me and kill me. That's one danger. But there's another danger as well. He comes as a brother. Assimilation. friendly, fine, kind, wonderful. We're just the same. We're not just the same. And assimilation is a very, very big issue in the United States. The statistics are appalling. How many Jews are intermarried? And a lot of them just don't know any better, but it's sad. But the assimilation is its own danger. It's two separate dangers. I'm concerned about my brother when he's acting like a brother. I'm concerned about. I'm acting when he's like Esav the wicked. I'm concerned. Two different concerns. One is spiritual death, and the other one is physical death. And it's a very big problem. And by the way, the statistics are very, very clear. You know what happens. They did some surveys on this, and it's frightening to see what happens when people veer off from keeping Torah mitzvahs and intermarry, and then the generation's just lost. They're just lost, and you know it's very, very sad. I mentioned, I don't know if you were here. I mentioned a story with my daughter, with somebody who went for business to Germany, and one of the German people that he was working with there, asked to meet with him afterwards, unrelated to work. And he said, sure. And he took him out to eat. And the man said to this fellow who used to live in Los Angeles, my father was a Nazi and he hated me. Okay. And I found out later on in life why he hated me. My mother was at a train station during World War II. And a train was going to the extermination camps, and a woman took her baby and threw her out into the station as the train was moving by, and my mother caught the baby, and I was that baby. And my father always assumed that I was a Jew, and my mother took me home and adopted me. And my father assumed I was a Jew, and therefore he hated me all my life. So he wanted to know, is he considered Jewish? And the man had done research to see what trains were coming when and where, and he wasn't able to confirm it, that there were Jews on that particular train. And the man said, look, I'm really sorry. I mean, I feel badly you suffered your life because your father thought you were Jewish, but that alone is not enough evidence to indicate that you're a Jew. So if you want to convert, you'd have to go through the process, but that in and of itself is not an evidence. Very sad story. But my daughter was a teenage girl at the time, and I told over the story when I heard it at home. And my daughter's response was fascinating. She said, why would a mother throw the child out when the child's not going to be raised Jewish? Which was quite an impressive question. And later on, I discussed this with her after she was older, and thank God is a mother of children herself. And she understood why the mother would do it. But the question in its naivete was a very powerful one. She was trying to save her daughter. But my daughter saw it as so black and white. If the child's not going to be raised as a Jew, like what's the point? Like I said, well, as she matured, she understood where the mother was coming from. To me, it's a very powerful, moving story, both ends of it. But I appreciated that she had that idealism to be able to say, you know, why would she throw her baby out and lose the child?
You're thinking about spiritual life.
Yeah, she was. And again, the mother had every right to do what she did. I want to be very clear about that, you know, saying that's, you know, saving a life is saving a life. But the question was striking. The story is sad and striking.
Did he convert?
Not that I don't know. The man went there once for work and had the story, and I don't know what happened after that. So he sends lavish gifts to Esav, and he separates the two camps. And interestingly enough, he this is the story of the Jew. This is the story of the Jew. We're going to survive. That's the guarantee that the Jewish people have from God. And there's a wonderful article from Rabbi Goldstein, the chief rabbi of South Africa. And if you'd like a copy of it, let me know. We'll make copies of it for you. He gave a speech at the Hillsummer Lecture on Jewish Law in Berlin's oldest university. So I'm going to read you the opening paragraph of it. It was with mixed emotions that I visited Humboldt University in Berlin a few weeks ago to deliver the annual Hildesheimer Lecture on Jewish Law. Humboldt is Berlin's oldest university. Marx and Engels studied there, and Albert Einstein lectured there. On the other hand, the first Nazi book burning took place just outside the gates of the university. On the road just outside the university is a plaque in memory of the Jewish students who were deported from the university during the Nazi era. It's a stark reminder of the darkness of the past, and now the same university hosts an annual lecture on the relevance of Torah law in the world today. In my lecture, I dealt with 4 areas of human rights: political power, married women's rights, the rights of the criminal accused, and poverty alleviation. In each of these areas, Jewish law was morally visionary positions which Western law only came around 2,000 of years later. I also demonstrate how the Torah often takes an approach which is more subtle and sophisticated in understanding the concept of vulnerability, in terms of which sometimes it is the individual and sometimes society which is considered to be the most vulnerable party. And he quotes the famous Catholic historian Paul Johnson about the Jews, who the end of what Paul Johnson says: without the Jews, it might have been a much emptier place. And what he says here is, it's not the Jews, Rabbi Goldstein says, it's the Torah. The Torah values and principles which infuse everything we do. It is about the values and the moral vision of being a Jew. And that's why we've lasted. It's, very strong, very powerful. So Yaakov is traveling, and he comes to a place, and he crosses his family across, and he goes back to get some little jugs. And while he's there, the angel of Esav attacks him. And the angel of Esav is literally a divine angel. Every nation, by the way, has its celestial representative. And the angel fights all night long and can't defeat Yaakov. And at the end, the angel says, "Let me go." And Yaakov says, "I'm not going to go until you give me a blessing." And the angel tells him that, okay, your name is Yaakov, but you're not only going to be called Yaakov, you're also going to be called Yisrael. Israel. That's where the name comes from. That's where the land comes from. The Jewish people are called Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. So the commentaries ask an interesting question. How come Avram and Yitzchak were never attacked by a celestial angel? An interesting question. And one of the answers is that Avram's primary characteristic was loving kindness. Yitzchak's primary characteristic was service to God. He himself was willing to be a sacrifice. Those are important keys, but the key element, as we mentioned, is the study of Torah. If they can get us to stop studying Torah, that'll be it. It's fascinating. I was at somebody's house many years ago, and they had a beautiful picture of a very rabbinic looking figure. And I asked her, who is that? She said, it's my great grandfather. Says, how'd you get such a nice picture of him? He says, it was printed in Der Stürmer. The Stürmer was the Nazi propaganda paper in Berlin. Why would the Stürmer have a picture of your great grandfather in it? Because the article was complaining, there's still Talmudists among us. This is pre-World War II. There's still Talmudists among us. That's bad. A Talmudist is someone who studies Talmud, the oral Torah. I know a friend of my parents of blessed memory who his father left money to his mother so that if the Nazis come into the apartment pre-World War II or right at the beginning of World War II, that she can bribe them to leave her alone. And the Nazis busted into the apartment and she gave them the money and they were about to leave and they saw volumes of the Talmud and they went crazy. They went literally crazy. They took the volumes and threw it out the window. And the Nazis understood that the Talmudists, those that are deeply etched into Torah learning, that's the survival of the Jewish people. They wanted to kill out all the Jews, but the secular Jews, they figured they're going to assimilate on their own, but we have to get those religious guys. That's what we have to get. They were searching for rabbis all the time. They wanted to kill the rabbis. As a matter of fact, one person dressed up as the rabbi and allowed the rabbi to escape. And of course, he was killed by the Nazis when they found out what had happened. But so it's a very, very interesting, concept. The Nazis understood that the Talmudists are their real danger in trying to eradicate the Jews. Now, what ended up happening is the angel did manage to injure Yaakov on his leg. And the idea for that is that the support of Torah is going to be weakened. The legs represent the support. The support of Torah is going to be weakened. That's, every organization, every religious organization is always looking to get support. It's not easy. But that was the injury that he got. The Jewish people will survive, and Torah will survive, but it won't be easy. Excuse me. Also, it's very interesting. When the Jews came over to America, what was critical was that they started making yeshivas, places for people to learn. That was critical. The synagogues, not as important. They found a room, they got it together, and you have a lot of synagogues today, temples that are not Orthodox, that have a lot of problems filling the pews. People aren't coming, it's formal religion, whatever it is. But a lot of Orthodox places are booming. And it's interesting, in Lakewood, New Jersey is a very large religious community. A lot of the old Reform and Conservative temples have closed and sold their buildings to the big Lakewood Yeshiva, one of the largest yeshivas in the world. They use it and they make a study hall out of it. It's very, very, very fascinating. Now, what's interesting is the Malach, the angel, wants to leave, and Yaakov's not letting him go until he gives him a blessing. Wait a second. This is Esav's Malach. Where's he going? He's going to sing praise to God. Because angels have times when they're destined to speak to God. And interestingly enough, we don't have times. We can talk to God whenever we want. It's a tremendous, beautiful thing. We have that ability to talk to God whenever we would like. And if the angel, though, how does that relate to Satan, to Satan, to the evil inclination? And the answer is, in Christianity, we look at it as two entities, but in Judaism, we say no. The Satan, the Yetzer Hara, is actually on the payroll of God. It's hidden accounts, Cayman Islands, you can't track it so well. but he's on God's payroll. What's his job? What's his job? To tempt us. And our job is to overcome his temptation. And that's why it's very interesting to note, you'll see in the Parsha that Yaakov asks him, what's your name? And he says, what do you ask me my name for? And what's the deeper understanding of that? The deeper understanding is the name is our essence. The evil inclination's name changes on his job. As a general, he's known as Satan, Satan, right? Great. But each one has a different job. This one, his job is to get angry easily. This one, his job is not to keep Shabbos. This one, his job is to be cheap and not give charity. This one's job is not be careful with eating kosher. Everybody's evil inclination is going to be different, and that's why he doesn't have a name. He's changing his profile based upon what he has to do. So he tells him his name is going to be Israel, and he blesses him, and he leaves. And now Yaakov is limping because remember I said that he banged him in his hip, and the son comes out and heals him. Hashem comes and heals him. So what that represents is the idea of that eventually will be healed from the evil inclination. Now there is let's see if I can find it. I made a copy of it. I mentioned before the Sefer HaChinuch, the book of Torah. So there's a mitzvah in the Parsha. The one mitzvah is that in an animal, we remove a certain sinew that was the place where Yaakov got hit on his leg. So the butcher, before the meat is put into the store, has to remove that sinew. We don't eat the gid hanashin. And I'm going to quote the Sefer HaChinuch. Remember, I said that there's a book of mitzvah observance that goes in the order of the portions. And this is what he says. The mitzvah removing the gid hanashin, that sinew, from an animal is an assurance to the Jewish people that although they will undergo much suffering at the hands of the nations, they will never be totally eradicated. Just as the angel was unable to destroy Yaakov and injured only his thigh, so will the nations never uproot Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, entirely, but inflict upon them only wounds of a temporary nature. They will be cured in the times of the Messiah, just as Hashem healed Yaakov. Very powerful, very powerfully said. All right. So now is the confrontation. Esav comes, and according to one opinion, he was moved to see Yaakov and his family, and he was crying. According to another opinion, he actually wanted to bite Yaakov on the neck. And Yaakov's neck became hard, and Esav's teeth fell out. And that's why he was crying. There's actually, where it says, Vayishlach, when he kissed him, there's dots on top to indicate that the teeth fell out. Yeah.
As a twin, I'll say the first interpretation is probably right. Because I mean, no matter how many you met your brother, especially your twin, if you haven't seen them for a while, you automatically get emotional.
Okay, so you relate to that. They're both true because our sages say both. So Esav looks and says, what's all this? What all this? He said, these are the blessings that God gave me, to my family and the wealth. So Esav says to Yaakov that I don't. Why'd you send me all this stuff as a gift to appease him? So let me quote the words here. There's a difference between what Yaakov and Esav says. And all of the children came forward, they bowed to him, and Esav says, I have plenty. Let what you have remain yours. And Yaakov says, no, I beg you, I have now found favor in your eyes and accept my tribute. As much as I have seen your face, I'm happy, okay. And as much as God has been gracious to me, and as much as I have everything. What's the difference between Yaakov? Esav said, I have plenty, and Yaakov says, I have everything. What's the difference between the two? Anybody? Thought?
What's the question again?
It's Esav said, I have plenty, and Yaakov says, I have everything. What do you think?
Was talking about material and
Yeah, Yaakov was talking about material too, because they're talking about the material things that he sent them.
Well, plenty means there's room for more. And if you
Excellent.
have everything, you don't need anything else.
Excellent, very good. That's exactly what the commentaries say. Esav was saying, I have plenty. I wouldn't mind more, but I have plenty. Hello, you can come and say hello. Good morning, hello. How you doing? Oh, what do you got there? A lollipop for me? No? Okay.
I'm sorry, Robert.
It's okay, no problem. When you say I have plenty, I wouldn't mind more. When I have everything, that means that whatever I have is everything that I need. If I have a lot, then I have to figure out what I have to do with how to serve God with a lot. If I have a little, then I have to figure out what I have to do to serve God with a little. There's a very big difference between the two. I have plenty, I wouldn't mind more. I have everything means whatever I have is enough, sufficient. That's a wonderful attitude to be able to have. Not easy, but a wonderful attitude to be able to have. So Yaakov gives it to him and says, no, keep it anyway. And he tells him to go. And Yaakov does not want to accompany him further on the journey because he doesn't want to be influenced by Esav. He doesn't want his family to be influenced by Esav. So he says, you go ahead. And Esav goes ahead, and Yaakov settles down. And he settles down near the city of Shechem. And Dinah, the daughter, Yaakov's daughter, goes out, and Shechem, the son of the owner of the town, kidnaps her and violates her. And eventually he decides, I want to marry Dinah. And he sends his father and said, how can we work out a deal that we can get married here? Because I'd like to marry. And Yaakov had a lot of wealth, so there was a lot of interest in people getting married with his sons. Now, obviously, the tribes were very upset about what had happened to their sister. So Shimon and Levi come, two of the brothers, and they say, look, now, we can't get married. You guys aren't Jewish. If you guys want to convert and have a circumcision, then we can start talking business. And they were very tempted by this idea. And he went to talk to the people, and the people agreed. Let's at least circumcise this. We're not really converting for the sake of becoming Jewish, but we'll circumcise this way. We'll be able to marry them, and we'll get access to their wealth. And on the third day of their bris milah, Shimon and Levi go into town and try to save Dinah. The people of the town resist, and Shimon and Levi kill out all the men and save Dinah and take her away. Yaakov was upset at their anger. Not that he didn't feel that the town deserved it. The town deserved it. Nobody stood up for Dinah, no one protected her. And now when they were coming to save her, everyone tried to stop them. But he said, we're trying to live here, and now the nations around us are going to attack us. And he was upset at their anger, but God miraculously protected them. But Yaakov was not happy that they were angry, and it's going to come out to play at a later date. Also in the Parsha, Rivka passes away, and Hashem speaks to Yaakov and lets him know what the angel had already said, and informs him that your name is not only going to be Yaakov, it's going to be Yisrael. And the land is promised him. And Yisrael, by the way, is the higher level of Yaakov. Rachel is expecting the last of the tribes. And the child that is born is Binyamin. But Rachel dies, the beloved wife of Yaakov dies in childbirth, and he names it Binyamin, and now there are 12 tribes. And if you look at page 77 in your handy art scroll, Chumash, if you have one, you don't have to get one, you can look at it later. I'm sorry? Heel, because he held on to the heel of Esau. No, heel, the bottom of the leg. He held on to Esau's foot because Esau was born first. Yisrael is that he's a master. He was able to fight with angel and defeat him. So if you look at on 77, it says Yaakov, and it says Zilpah, Bilhah, Leah, and Rachel, and it says the sons that they had and the daughter. Rachel had Yosef and Binyamin, Leah, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, and Dinah. Bilhah had Dan and Naphtali, and Zilpah had Gad and Asher. Rachel is buried in Beis Lechem. Beis Lechem is known in English as Bethlehem. Bethlehem, Beis Lechem. And that's a site that people go, I'm sorry? Yeah. That's a town that people go to this very day to pray for Rachel Imenu's gravesite. Very special connection that people have to that. So Rachel dies, and Reuven decides. So Yaakov put his bed in the tent of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant. And Reuven is not happy with this arrangement. He wanted that Yaakov's regular bed should be in Leah's tent. They each had their own tent, his mother's tent. And he went to the tent and took out the bed and put it into Leah's tent. Now, we understand why he felt that way, but what's the problem? Anybody?
Not his place.
Yeah.
Not his place, not your business. Your dad's a huge tzaddik, and he has to do what he needs to do. And the language of the Torah is very strong in what he did. I'm going to read the verse in English, page 191. And it came to pass while Israel dwelt in the land that Reuven went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard. Sounds like he slept with her, but that's not what it means. All it means is that he moved the bed, but it's considered as if he was mixing into the sexual aspect of his father and was not his business, and he shouldn't have done that. So Yaakov and Yitzchak are finally reunited. Eventually, Yitzchak dies, and he's buried in the Ma'oras HaMachpelah, the cave of Machpelah. Who's buried there? So we had Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, Avrohom and Sarah, Rivka, and now Yitzchak is buried there in the cave of Machpelah in the city of Hebron in Israel. It's there to this day. Yes, sir.
How old is God? What did it say?
I have to look it up. I'm sure it does, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So now there's an inheritance to be had. And there's a choice. Yaakov gives Esav a choice. There's the wealth and the land of Israel, and to be buried in the cave of Machpelah. And Esav says, I take the wealth, the cash. I want the money. And they sign a contract that the land of Israel and the cave of Machpelah belongs to Yaakov. And the Parsha ends with listing the descendants of Esav. That's how the Parsha ends. Okay, we did a lot of stuff today. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Is there is it indicated when Leah passed away anywhere?
Not at this time. I don't think it says it here. Not yet. And I don't know if I don't think it says it. My recollection is, I don't know, I'm saying what I'm saying is right, but my recollection is I don't remember that it's actually a verse that says it.
Anywhere?
Yeah. But then, as far as I can recollect off the top of my head, Leah was still alive at this point, because that's why it was the issue with the moving of the beds.
Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Yeah, Steve.
Is there a time frame between Rachel passing away and Yitzhak? Is there like, did you ever say like how many years?
Yitzchak died first. That was before.
Yitzhak died that first.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have to look at the verses, but yeah, that's what I think. Any other questions, thoughts? Going once? No, it seems that Rivka's death was first, at least based upon the order of the text. That's what it seems like. Yitzchak died later in the portion. All right, next Sunday class on the laws and customs of Hanukkah. We'll do it on Zoom as well, and also those of you even far away are invited to the Hanukkah party we're going to have. All right, feel good. Have a great week, everybody. Wishing you good news, and the Almighty should protect the Jewish people, and the hostages should be freed happily and healthily, and everyone should have a full and speedy recovery. All righty.
Thank
Take
you.
any other thoughts, questions? Last call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. All the best.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
Rafa.